You know the football, it is what it is. It is what it is.
Zaire Emery goes for goal and finishes off the PSG victory.
Nuno Mendes est lancé, Nuno Mendes va vite, Nuno Mendes passe devant Quadrado, le tir, oh il est beau celui-là, le but de Nuno Mendes.
Vers Kylian Mbappé, la reprise pied gauche instantanée, le doublé.
Hello and welcome to PSG Review, also known as the show, listening to all the offers for any vast fortunes, also known as the show with the spring in our step, even if the summer is already far. Quite the life and times of this club. They say never a dull day, but if only we could have some days that aren't quite so unnerving. My name is Mikko, great to have you with me, and what a busy show we have today. Thank you so much for listening. The team is currently in Japan and well occupied by the preseason tour with a handful of friendlies, training sessions and some promotional activities as well. But I guess also to share the experience, to get to know the new players even socially and to make everyone feel comfortable to be part of the team. In this episode, we also get our latest update, what is happening with the young man with the world on his feet. We also discuss how this team might look in the future in a bit, as well as what was the message that the club president Nasser Al-Khelaifi conveyed to his troops at the training center? Also, in this episode, who should be the captain of this team this season and much, much more. But before any of that, let's have a very quick look into the first friendly last Friday against Le Havre at the new training center in Poissy. These first friendlies are always quite special, seeing the new players for the first time in our colors. A lot of young players are involved, and of course some of our favorites are back in action. The preface for the match was a little bit unfortunate, as Gianluigi Donnarumma and his partner had been burgled and tied while he had, according to his own words, tried to use his beginner's French to explain where the valuables are in order to keep his partner, and I assume himself, also unharmed. Really an awful experience, I can imagine. And while there's been burglaries before, being actually under physical threat present there and tied up, it's next level. So we hope that neither one of them or people around them are too traumatized, but also it's no surprise that Donnarumma was unavailable for this match so soon after this terrible incident. In goal we had Alexander Letelier, Hakimi, Danilo, Lucas Hernandez and Layvin Kusava. I was the backline midfield with Manuel Ugarte, Fabian Ruiz, Warren Emery and Lee Kang-in, and Marco Asensio and Ismail Gabi in attack. On the bench we had Keylor Navas, who came in the second half for a moment before Letelier came back. Not sure what that was all about, but that did happen. Also we had Skriniar, Marquinhos, Sheriff Naga, Timothy Mbembele, Marco Verratti, Vitinha, Ethan Mbappé, Renato Sanchez, Shendur, Lemina, Draxler, Ekitike, Husni and Kylian Mbappé with the shirt on the sideline, and all but Draxler, Verratti, Husni and Mbembele got some minutes during this friendly match. And this is not a deep dive analysis. I don't know if these are the matches where you even supposed to make those or if they are even quite interesting, but there were some highlights. Well, of course, it was to be expected that things were far from full swing. Lee Kang-in was great but got injured, and currently he's training separately in Japan. I hope it's nothing too serious and he can be playing soon again. We haven't heard any details about it, which I think was a little bit surprising. But the time he played, he was a joy to watch. Another new guy, Shendur, fresh European champion in the under-19s with Italy, was very interesting, and he assisted both of the goals. The match ended 2-0 for us, and there were other promising displays as well. An historical moment also when Kylian and Ethan Mbappé played together for the first time on the pitch ever. And if the situation with Kylian wasn't so complicated right now, that would have been even more special. But we have to play the cards as they've been dealt. Goals in this match were by Hugo Ekitike and Kylian Mbappé in the very end. And like I said, both of those goals were assisted by our new guy, midfielder from Italy, partially also of Senegalese background, Shendur. Some positives also were that especially in the first half, PSG pressing was pretty intense, very immense actually, and the pace was quite fast. I mean, it is a preseason friendly, but you could kind of see the difference to some of the times that we previously had. And I guess with our previous front three, it can happen, but we will see how this will work when the starting 11 gels a little bit better and who are going to be part of it. I must say, I don't necessarily have yet a clear image of how we will line up, and of course it also depends on the last transfers as they come, injuries and all the other things. But the questions at the moment, I guess, are: will we get Bernardo Silva, Will there be Harry Kane or Gonzalo Ramos? Are there any other players that will end up in our squad? And of course, a lot depends on Kylian Mbappe's situation. It looks like he could have even scored his last PSG goal in this friendly, although anything, of course, can still happen. It does look like, however, that he won't necessarily be playing for us this season. And the question is, will there be a sale or will he wait in the stands for the whole season? And if there will be a sale, how much money will come to the PSG account from it? I genuinely look forward to this not being the central talking point for our club, but for the time being, there's no other way than to talk about the huge elephant in the room. That is, of course, the situation around Kylian Mbappé and his absence from the preseason tour in Japan. It's not a great situation. It's quite sad, actually, the way this seems to be ending now, our story together, unless, of course, there's some sort of unexpected turn where things align again, but that seems highly unlikely, and we might just need to wrap up the chapter with him and lose probably the best player in the world. Well, it's one thing to be the best player, or certainly one that is part of that conversation, but if things don't work, then they don't work, and if your presence becomes an issue with the project and general cohesion, then there has got to be better ways. And what sort of saddens me a bit is how much this has all become about various acts of stubbornness and desperation that everyone has hit as hard as they could. This feels like a thing that might even impact the legacy of this player in our colors. I don't know. To some, he's already a persona non grata. Some take his side and some are mourning the status quo while baffled about how did it get this ugly this quickly, and I guess I'm part of that last group. I don't hate the player or the person. I'm disappointed in the way that he has conducted himself so far, and that's not because he wants to leave. If he wants to leave, he should leave, because I don't want anyone who doesn't want to be in Paris to be there anymore. But when you're on the highest level of sport, one of the biggest players of the biggest sport there is, and you sign one of the biggest contracts there are, you have to accept that it will come with some complications, expectations, and demands that aren't taken lightly. The latest news is that since PSG has put him on the market, there's been various offers from England and quite notable interest also from Saudi Arabia. They are flexing their financial muscles over there. According to Fabrizio Romano, Al Hilal have submitted a formal bid to PSG in order to open the talks for Kylian Mbappé, and that bid could go as high as 300 million euros or more, which would be an historical record fee and with quite a high margin as well. What would be their contractual demands? I don't know exactly, because of course, if you look at it practically, the last thing Mbappé wants is to tie himself into Saudi Arabia for years to come. I doubt that he wants to go there at all, certainly not at this stage of his career, but if he can get some ridiculous offer that would cover one season, bring him more money than anything else, and allow him to go freely next summer, then of course that would sound better than hanging out on the bench for a season and being excluded from the Champions League squad if he was to stay in Paris for this last season. I'm not sure if the club would have the courage of their conviction to actually bench him for a whole season, but at this point it's part of the power game, and it could even be as extreme as that, because PSG as club find itself in a situation where the excessive player power, which the leadership has enabled, of course, throughout the years, has come to a point that it starts to be heavily away from the collective. Arguably, it's been that for a while, but Nasser Al-Khelaifi is in a corner where he needs to figure out how can the club handle this situation and how will it look to the outside world. This is about optics also, so he probably wants to be stern while appearing fair also. We are at this point, because of the way that the club has been ran, we are being hoisted with our own petard. We will get into the speech Nasser Al-Khelaifi gave at the training ground in a moment. That was last week as I'm recording, but just to say, it's very good for PSG if there are many offers on the table from many different types of teams and clubs, because then it will make it more difficult, I guess, for Kylian Mbappé to insist on the Real Madrid only. It won't make it impossible or even unlikely. I think it still could happen, but it will become his burden more. He will appear that a little bit more unreasonable, which I think he has been, even if he's perfectly within his rights. But there are things in the world you can do legally, morally, whatever else, but they are still not the nicest things to do. They can look bad. And I don't know what the arrangement actually is between Mbappé and Real Madrid. PSG seems convinced that Mbappé already has agreed terms with Real Madrid with the contract ready to go. And if he and Real Madrid already have a binding contract for him to come next summer for free, that would be against the regulations, as he could only have it from next January onwards. That's certainly my understanding of it, just like it was with us and Milan Skriniar earlier this year. He could sign with us in January because he was a free agent this summer now currently. So that was the time when he could do that. And I suppose the same should apply to Kylian Mbappé as well. That would, of course, rule out all the other suitors if there was already an existing contract and arrangement, which then would be against the regulations of the game. Or then it wouldn't be binding if there's some kind of a gentleman's agreement or whatever you have. I mean, whoever those other clubs could be. Currently, names that have been mentioned on top of Al Hilal that I also already mentioned, at least Chelsea, Manchester United, Tottenham, Inter Milan and Barcelona, who would, according to many sources, mainly offer players because the situation is what it is. But if there's a secret dossier already in Real Madrid safe, then it's also very futile. If Real Madrid refuses to bid this summer or make a reasonable bid, then it's for PSG to decide what to do with him this season. The talk is to keep him on the bench for a year, like I said. When would they have the guts to do it? And of course, this is also a labor rights issue, and the UNFP, which is the players' organization in France, has already taken this up as an issue. But PSG seems to feel that this could be done while following the letter of the law. They certainly can afford good lawyers, so they can consult them. And mind you, I don't know if this contract already exists between Mbappé and Madrid. Like I was discussing in the last episode of PSG Review, I don't know if it exists, but it would certainly explain a lot, because this is quite an unusual situation. This is quite uncharacteristic for the player and, just in general. So if there is this kind of arrangement already existing, then that would explain a lot, and that would explain why Mbappé behaves in this kind of way, like there aren't any options for him, why he's often so good communication just isn't there this time. Perhaps that's the bizarre thing here to me. I just find his behavior outside his usual character. But if PSG wants to choose then a clear option, they will bench Kylian for the whole season. One lost season ahead of the Euros and Olympics next summer. It would be a massive statement and quite a circus, but it certainly is possible. I think it's more likely that it's part of the game. I imagine that if the worst comes to worst, the player and the club will find some kind of compromise to coexist for a year. That is, unless Mbappe's hands are tied due to another commitment he has already made, perhaps with Real Madrid. There was also talk about some documentary project around his last season in Paris and then the Olympics, and that of course is quite a lot of money that is on the line. These are usually quite lucrative projects for the people who are part of them. And I say documentary, I think that these kind of documentaries that I understand that they're talking about, they are less of a journalistic value and more of a promotional piece, a kind of a human interest thing. It's more like they are telling their own story rather than that there's some kind of a journalistic investigation into their situation. So very sort of soft journalism. But is that also a commitment he's made based on his vision of the next 12 months? I don't know, but I guess that will not be aligned with the vision of the club. And I imagine they can control to a certain extent how much access any kind of film crew would have for the club premises, facilities, if they so chose. And it would perhaps be very petty, but there is a lot of pettiness around when egos are this big, as they undoubtedly are on all sides of this story. So at worst, Kylian has made a miscalculation, and mind you, his U-turn 1 year ago didn't win any favors by Florentino Perez or Real Madrid in general, their fan base or anyone. And I guess, in the end, I think the money will talk. Some arrangement will be made. Perhaps Real pays a reasonable amount this summer, but not the full value. Or then there's a loan deal. Perhaps PSG will loan him out for this year with a sensible division of all the costs involved. Whenever I talk about this particular matter, people say that this is because QSI has made a bad deal and they have made this possible. We don't know the full context of it all, but Mbappé has a right to do exactly what he's doing. Is it wise? Well, I'm not sure. Probably it won't be wise. Will it have consequences? I think it definitely will have consequences, and I think this might be kind of talking point, and now we're talking about such amounts of money that this is a little bit unheard in the football. While there's been a lot of money in line before, there's been a lot of drama before, but we have kind of entered a next level, and this is something that is a little bit unprecedented, although of course in the history of football there's been all kinds of deals and complicated situations before. If we are looking at this straightforward as a labor issue, Mbappé is an employee of PSG and he has every right that his contract provides him, and he's seemingly now exercising those rights, unless, like said, if he has signed something with Real already that goes beyond what he is allowed to do. But otherwise, he's saying that he wants to respect his contract, and this is the last year of his contract, so there's nothing particularly outrageous about that. Mbappé clan, as they are known, might be very happy to have this conversation within the context of employee rights, which is not only understandable, but it's also true that it all falls in this particular conversation. But of course, it's also a little bit complicated to try and fence this in this particular angle, since we're living in inflation and cost of living crisis and people are struggling to make the ends meet. So many will feel little sympathy to a person who is waiting to cash in tens of millions of euros in loyalty bonus by just not saying the word he wants out. Mbappé represents the top tier of earners in sports. It doesn't make him less of an employee, but it means that he has also his reputation to keep intact, and currently he's not doing very well with that. He stands to gain many millions of euros, but to lose a lot of goodwill. The personal brand is very important to these modern athletes, and Kylian finds himself in a position where he might be doing some sabotage to his own image. While most of the squad is currently in Japan, having the preseason tour, Kylian Mbappé is training currently at the training center with others who were left home, and on his way to the first session, he stopped to give some autographs at the gate wearing a PSG hat, and it appears that this isn't something that he regularly does, so it could have been gestured towards the cameras. That is what it looks like anyway. So this is about optics. A lot of this is about optics. I don't want to say that there couldn't be any genuine feelings about this, but I also think that it would be a bit naive to think about that things are just done without any kind of connection to something. It's some kind of a power plays happening all the time. And how do you control your image? What is the public opinion of what is happening? Is the public opinion around this whole matter going to be that PSG is trampling on Kylian Mbappe's employer rights, his labor rights, or is this a question that Kylian Mbappé is kind of abusing, almost like it's not a loophole as such, but it's abusing the situation to his own financial gain, and perhaps he might have made the club misunderstand what his position is in terms of the future of his career in Paris, or then it's just something that people have misunderstood or whatever is happening. But this is a question: where are people's sympathies going to grow? And when you are dealing with this kind of business, that is not a small question. It is quite a big question. So we will see to what extent the situation gets sorted in the coming weeks. The deadline for this transfer window, of course, is 1st of September, and I hope they can find a somewhat amicable way for him to exit our club for the best of everybody. Of course, in perfect world, it would be great if he wanted to stay and none of this would have ever happened, but if he doesn't want to stay, and it could be getting a little late for that anyway if he made that U-turn again. Although when Neymar was wanting out in 2019, things did turn for the better. Although with him, it's been a rocky road and there's been many twists and turns in that particular journey. One way to minimize the damage to the legacy and the relationship between Kylian Mbappé and PSG as a club, also all of us, supporters of PSG, would be to take the big transfer offer from Saudi Arabia, which would give the club the resources to rebuild the project beyond his presence. And he would, after all, probably be happier to play somewhere than to sit on the bench waiting for the Euros and Olympics, which would be a lot of drama anyways, a lot of drama for all of us. You know, it's something that none of us need, and then he could also go for free to the team of his choice while making ridiculous amounts of money in the process. No English or Italian club would give him that, to give him a 1-year contract that he could go next summer for free. And unless Real Madrid is willing to make a solid offer in good faith this summer, purely selfishly speaking, focusing on our finances and our logistic, the Al Hilal offer would tick our boxes the best. Would it be good for football in general? That's more complicated matter in football. We have had for a long time leagues and clubs that have the financial power to buy the best players from other leagues. There aren't really many better examples of this than our beloved League One, which is always losing its best talent to often sort of mediocre Premier League sides in England or something like that, because they have particularly good TV money coming in. If that TV money then comes from Sky, which is owned by perhaps the worst kind of toxic media baron like Rupert Murdoch, then no one seems to be interested in that. But this isn't about whataboutism. I'm not saying that, oh, but what about this, what about that? If you ask me, I'd be very happy with the whole new vision for football where money was less central and there would be a fan ownership model like they have in Germany, something along those lines. I'd love for the matches to be easier and cheaper to access, that the TV packages that you have to get to see them wouldn't be so incredibly expensive, costing you arm and a leg. And I would also be okay if in this process the players would be paid less, because they really aren't paid quite a lot of money. I would be very happy even if the match day shirts were not costing so incredibly much as they currently do. So if we rematch in professional football, I think there's much to be done, and this Saudi invasion is just a natural outcome of the way these things have been working already. It's a logical next step. It's not my preferred next step, especially when the country in question has a little to no respect for most human rights and the money comes from fossil fuels, as of course also is the case with our owners, and although in far smaller case, like far smaller scale, even if the similarities are there, these countries are in different leagues. But I'm hoping for a football future that is less finance-driven, less commercial, and more on the side of the solution as the planet is burning rather than the problems. But for that, we need to have much deeper analysis of everything that's been happening for decades now. And I'm not well equipped to do that just now, so we stay here looking for what might be in store. Let's go a little bit back in time when all the current players came to the new training center last week, Tuesday, before the first friendly match against Le Havre and before leaving to Japan, before the official exclusion of Kylian Mbappé from the team. The club president Nasser Al-Khelaifi was present and gave a speech to the people in attendance. I can imagine a fairly carefully considered speech, so let's see what was said and what does it all mean. This is what he said. We are entering a new era with new mentality and new state of mind. All together, we need to go in the same direction. Proud to play for the club, for this jersey, for PSG. Happy to be here and especially faithful. Okay, there's no points for guessing who the faithfulness part was for, but he continued. I want to welcome the new coach and the new players first. It's important to tell you that the coach has power to do what he wants. He is the one who decides. We are all in the same direction with Luis Enrique, Luis Campos and the staff. The club is bigger than anyone here, even bigger than me. I expect you to be 200% in training. Look, you are the best training center in the world. You should be proud of that and you should benefit from it. You have everything to succeed here. You lack nothing. There's no excuse for not succeeding. It's necessary to work hard. I want to have fun when I see my team. So, Nasser Al-Khelaifi was making quite a clear statement that this is the end of the player power as we know it, and some sort of a promise that he won't meddle too much. That is, I guess, a natural conclusion if the coach is to have the power, and time will tell to what extent he actually means this. Finally, he said this. You must also respect our fans, our sponsors. It's all part of your job. You must be happy and proud to do that. The relationship wasn't always easy last season. It's true, but what I want is for you to respect the fans from the first game. After the matches, I want you to go and see the fans. They pay to come and see you, to support you. You have to respect that, even if it's been difficult at times. That, of course, was directed at us, the fans, and perhaps even more so the PSG ultras, because their feelings are the ones heard on a match day the most, and they are also known to find other ways to make their voice heard. So perhaps Nasser Al-Khelaifi wanted to stabilize this season so that the last season's heat won't reach this new campaign ahead of us. Time will tell whether this was an actual statement of intent or if it was just politicking, but I would like to wish that in all this, everything that we are living through, he too would have some time for critical self-reflection, because it's easy to blame others. It's always somebody else's fault. Everything is always somebody else's fault. But to fess up to your own shortcomings, that is something that is far harder. And even if he didn't do it publicly, I wish it is a thought that sometimes keeps him up at night, because whatever sides we may or may not take here, if that is even necessary to take any sides, whoever we might think is in the right. Nobody's perfect, and personally, I am in the side of the club and I want what is the best for the club, not its ownership, not the individuals in powerful position or even individual players as such, because they come and go. I wish them well for the most part, but the club remains. It was here before Nasser Al-Khelaifi and QSI. It was here before Kylian Mbappé or any other global superstars, and it will be here after they are long gone. There's been a lot of talk about who should be our captain this coming season. After our long-term captain Thiago Silva left in 2020, his successor was another Brazilian centre-back, Marquinhos, but during his captaincy, his level of performance has not been always the best. It's been a bit up and down. He has made some comments last season that didn't go down very well among the fan base, and his leadership has been called into question quite a few times. So let's entertain this conversation for a moment. If Marquinhos wouldn't be the captain, then who should it be? It's all of a sudden surprisingly complicated question now that the obvious choice, Kylian Mbappé, seems to be out of the question. What are the requirements? Let's start from that. What are the requirements for a captain? What's the criteria? We need someone who plays most of the matches, someone who could be considered a starter, someone who is a leader in the squad and an example to all the players, and also I think someone with a cool head. I would also imagine that we can rule all the newcomers out. It's a bit too early for them to take over these duties. Does Luis Enrique agree with that? I don't know, but I would say let's discuss the following options. Marco Verratti, Danilo, Neymar Jr., Gianluigi Donnarumma, and Presnel Kimpembe. I feel like these could realistically be options to be captains, perhaps ahead of anyone else at this point, certainly. So let's start with Marco Verratti. He is our longest serving player currently, even if he isn't far ahead of Marquinhos, of course, but he has been in Paris for a very long time. At this point, after a difficult last season, perhaps his worst in Paris and seemingly a drop in his level of motivation, his destiny is still a little bit unclear. There's been some offers. I don't know if he's interested to go or if he wants to stay. I don't quite know. It's a little bit unclear. So I have the world of respect for Marco, and there's been times when he has absolutely carried us. I will consider him a club legend, I think purely for his input throughout the years, but we also know that he's a bit of a loose cannon in terms of his temperament, and having him discussing with the referee, contesting the decisions, seems hardly like a good plan. Despite his last season, I like him. I hope he continues with us and gets to his usual level, but would I have him as a captain to wear the armband? No, I don't think that would be a good idea. Danilo actually would be my own personal favorite, but what will be his role with the new recruits? I trust he will get his minutes, but he won't probably be an unquestioned starter as a defender or a midfielder. I have no doubt that he will make a meaningful contribution to this team this season, and I trust that his work ethic and mentality will be there among the best, if not the very best in the team, but his place in the pecking order, that's unclear for now, so that's a little bit of an issue. He's my preferred leader out of these players, but not sure if this will work this time. How about Neymar? Neymar. We have a long and very bizarre relationship with him. He starts to be actually one of our longest serving players, believe it or not, but injuries are his issues, and would he even want to be the captain of this team? I'm not sure. I'm thinking that this armband isn't necessarily for him. It could be the thing that will give him the position he feels that he needs, the kind of responsibility. Maybe that would help him. I don't think it would be catastrophic, even, if he has his issues with the fan base or parts of the fan base, but I don't necessarily see him taking over these duties either. Then there's Gianluigi Donnarumma. He isn't the worst choice purely because he seems like the only guaranteed starter for now, and this of course can still change, but is it still a little bit too soon? He's starting his third season, and I'm not sure what is his locker room status, but it could be quite convenient in that sense. But is it the best choice? I don't know. Is it a better choice than Marquinhos? Not sure. And then there's Presnel Kimpembe, Maestro Kimpembe. He could be an obvious choice as a local guy from the youth system, but he starts the season injured, so he certainly can't be the captain from the very beginning, and we don't have any knowledge how he will come back or indeed what his position in the defensive hierarchy will be this season. Also, when he's been the captain, things haven't always been amazing. I like this guy a lot. I really do like him a lot, but we come to this ultimate questions. Are any of these players going to be better captains than Marquinhos? There's no need to change unless there's a far superior option available. So what if Marquinhos kept the armband? Before this current Mbappé saga, I'd have given the armband to him. But as things are, Marquinhos might just be the best choice. Not perfect choice, but the best choice. And I may regret saying this, afterwards, is he a starter? I don't know if he's going to be a starter, an unquestioned starter, if he's going to be the primary defender. I don't even quite know which formation we're going to be playing with. Are we going to be playing with the back three or back four or what it's going to be? But who better than him? I don't think there will be much better option available as things are in this squad. So the final answer, it will come soon, I guess, but just to say I'm okay with things as they are, certainly, like said, in the absence of better alternatives. That is all for now. I'm recording this on Monday afternoon. Tomorrow, Tuesday, there's a friendly match against Al Nassr in Osaka, Japan, and there was also a preseason friendly match added to be played in South Korea on 3rd of August. Before that, there's also a match against Res Osaka, as well as recent Champions League runner-up Inter Milan, and the season proper starts 13th of August when Lorient comes to Parc des Princes. My name is Mikko. We keep on following these events as they occur, and hopefully you are well. Take care of yourself and the ones around you. Let's try to relax occasionally during these transfer storms. Peace.